Hello everyone, Miss Carrie here. For this card making project, I'm going to be using the new plaid texture background die, the Hello elongated frame and die set, and the autumn artesian die set. This Calls for Confetti is known for their lovely embellishments, so I grabbed a few of my favorites. I've selected some soft white flatback pearls and matte black confetti. Let's go ahead and get started with the project. I'm going to start by cutting out all the parts and pieces that are needed for the card. I have a piece of black cardstock cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 for my background panel. From the center of this, I'm going to cut out the oval frame and the word hello. I'm doing this simply to save some cardstock. Once the top panel is layered over this, you won't even know these cuts are here. You just want to make sure that the oval die is centered so that there's a small frame of black that remains uncut. I'm going to bring in that top panel to make sure this is centered. Like I said, this is just a way to save on supplies. If you have plenty of cardstock to spare, or you're using a black folded card base, you can cut these two images from a separate piece of cardstock. Today's card is going to be full of texture. The oval frame has a lovely debossed set of lines, and they're going to look amazing paired with the stitching from this textured panel die. I'm going to place my white cardstock in the center of this. I cut this a little smaller than my black card panel. It needs to be nice and straight so that the stitched lines don't look wonky behind the frame. Let me secure this real quick and then I'll run it through the machine. Take a look at that stitching detail. Isn't it amazing? Now we have two items that are going to add texture to our card. Let's create a third. This one is a little more detail oriented, but it's going to look amazing. We're going to create an inlay with leaves. This is going to sit inside the frame. I'm going to start by tracing the frame die onto white cardstock. This is going to give us a reference for placement when we cut out the leaves. To simplify this inlay process, I'm going to place double-sided tape on the back. Doing this will make the assembly go so much faster. Now we need to cut out the oval. I'm cutting around the inside edge of that drawn line so that this shape is a little bit smaller than the frame. This will prevent the edges from showing once all the layers are on the card. For the inlay pieces, I'm using a leaf from the autumn artesian die set. If you're new to creating inlays, you might want to pick one of the shapes with less details. Many of these have very thin stems and branches, which might make it difficult to adhere in place. If you're an overachiever, feel free to select one of the more detailed dies. Personally, I want this card to be quick to make, so I'm going to use this one here. Since I added that layer of double-sided tape, I have added my shim to the die cutting sandwich. I will also be cutting this upside down so that most of the pressure is on that double-sided tape. Let me try to explain that a little better. I'm going to place the first leaf image here, so I'm going to secure the die in place with a little tape. This will be placed onto my stack of die cutting plates with the tape side facing up. The solid side of the die is sitting against my magic mat. When I run this through the machine, the pressure from the rollers will cut through the tape first. This creates a nice clean cut through all the layers. Once that leaf shape is cut, you want to carefully remove the die cut with the tape backing still in place and set the leaf aside. Now I'm going to attach the die to the oval again and run it through the machine. This is going to be a lot like random stamping. You're going to leave little spaces between each leaf image and rotate the die to create a mixed leaf design. Some of these leaves will go off of the edge. Just make sure that you keep all of the pieces so that you can create the inlay. You could also bring in some of your favorite floral dies, tree or twig shapes, or simple shapes like hearts or circles. You could also create an inlay with the sentiment. That would be really fun to try. Now that all the leaf pieces are cut, we're going to bring in the rest of the items for the card. The word hello is going to need to stand above all the inlay pieces. Instead of using foam tape for that, I cut out some additional sentiments and I'll layer those together to create a dimensional effect. Let's start by adhering this oval piece to the center of the card. The solid tape backing is now in a lot of little pieces, so this is going to take me a moment. Now I just need to adhere this to my plaid background. I'm using the grid lines to help me get this straight. I need to make sure this is nice and centered because once it's stuck down, I'm not going to be able to lift it back up. The next step is to adhere all the leaves in place and create the inlay. I'm going to start with the partial pieces, then I'll add the complete leaf die cuts. Now this is where that double-sided tape comes in handy. If I had used liquid adhesive, I might have a little bit of oozing under the tiny stems. It's doable, but the tape makes this so much easier. I am a fan of classic designs like this black and white combination, but this card could easily be altered with a little bit of color. The inlay background could be shaded with inks, sprays, or watercolors. You could also cut the leaf shapes from another color or create them in a mix of pastels or bold hues. Let me know in the comments how you would design the inlay. Would you keep it simple or add bits of color? All right, now that the leaves are in place, I'm going to bring this up to the camera because I want you to see the combination of textures here. It is a bit busy, which is why we're going to add a separator with that black cardstock frame. To give this some dimension, I'm adding foam tape to the back. Let's place this right over the top. Take a look at that. With 3 different dies, we created 3 different textures. Let's go ahead and adhere this to the background panel. I'm keeping the sentiment simple, but I don't want it to get lost in all of the texture, so I'm going to raise it up a bit. I could use foam tape, but it's going to be much easier to adhere die cut layers together, especially since this is a thin script. This technique is one that I often share on my card making and scrapbooking projects. I prefer to adhere them together with liquid adhesive because it gives me a little bit of time to line everything up before it dries. All right, at this point, you could leave the card as is and call it complete. But my goal today was to share multiple ways to bring dimension to your cards. So we're going to add some embellishments. This Calls for Confetti is known for its amazing collection of shaker bits, clay bits, and embellishments like flat back pearls. For years, I have used these pearls on my projects. They don't flake like some pearls do, and they adhere easily with a little bit of liquid adhesive. Now, if you're worried about the pearls adding too much bulk, you could use one of the flat confetti pieces. Let me bring those in real quick. This is a matte black confetti. Again, these are available in a variety of colors and textures. I'm going to use these to emphasize the sentiment. I'm going to finish adhering these in place, and then I'll share the completed card with you. There are a lot of different textures going on here, but they all played well together in this classic color palette. In the background is a stitched plaid created with a texture plate. Over the top, we have a simple embossed frame with an inlay inside. The details in those leaves create an amazing design behind the dimensional sentiment. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and check out more card making projects on this channel. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.